Here are some highlights of this program.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to Brainstorm exclusive interview.
Our education should be corrected, adapted, and updated.
Live better, they can send their children to school because they can interact with their authorities.
Techniques, electricity, computer science, innovation,
And we know that this brainstorm.
You yourself, after watching this interesting program, notice the final statement made by our notable guest, a brand new one. Welcome to Brainstorm Broadcast. The role of non-governmental organizations called the NGOs in the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is the gripping topic we're going to discuss together in this program. Why is there a need of NGOs in the States, especially in the Democratic Republic of Congo? What are some problems that NGOs must face in order to function better? And what are some social problems NGOs must fix in order to contribute to community development? All these questions will be analyzed and also brainstormed together in this program. I'm honored to welcome a friend of mine whose name is Joshua Diombelai. How are you doing, Joshua?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy to welcome you on the stage.
Likewise, sir.
Very first time.
A pleasure to be on your show.
Let me introduce you. Joshua is a Congo-American Language Institute teacher, an entrepreneur, and also a bachelor's degree in international business in Missouri Southern States University in the United States. Is that correct?
Correct, absolutely.
Thank you so much. So, in any given state, there are governmental organizations that depend on government to care for the population's needs. Can you name some of those?
The governmental organizations?
International or locals,
The governmental organization internationally, we have a lot of them. In the United States, for instance, we have a lot of agencies that I cannot officially name, but we have agencies, for instance, for those seeking employment. They are what we have. We call staffing agencies that help people to get a job. If you like to get a job, so you have to go through a staffing agency, apply to the staffing agency, and then they will refer you to any employment opportunities. And we also have agencies like governmentally. We have agencies like immigration. In immigration, we have what we call UFCIS. It's a federal government agency. Their role is to make sure they manage the immigration process.
Okay, that's so great because I can understand that you lived a long time in the United States, so maybe you got some trouble just to name some of local governmental organizations. But in any way, in addition to government, there are also non-governmental organizations.
Absolutely.
So we talk a lot about NGOs and so on, but what are they exactly?
Well, I think when it comes to, let me come back on the local agencies. We have an agency in charge of inspection of finances, for instance, in the DRC, what we call IGF in DRC. It's one of the governmental agencies whose main goal is to make sure the audit and the double check on the use of finances. So that's I had to make sure I answer that question. Now, when it comes to your question in regard with the no governmental organizations, so we definitely have a lot of them locally, domestically, nationally, and internationally.
Okay, but what are they exactly? Because it seems that you have run some of them.
All right. I think when, as far as I'm concerned, locally we have, I would name my own nonprofit. I just started a nonprofit organization, which is actually a foundation. The goal is to tackle some of the education challenges we experience in diaspora, because the goal was to help the diaspora integrate in the American society. So you will have to apologize that I have more of international perspective than local perspective.
Okay, it's quite understandable from your explanations that you got much knowledge on what's going on outside and what is going on locally or domestically speaking. But ladies and gentlemen, we know that Joshua is not the only one just to give explanations on what NGO is. Please look at this interview to see about facts in civil society of NGOs through this. Enjoy this video, please.
An NGO is, or NGOs really, are independent institutions, independent of government, and they occupy a unique space between the government and the private sector. And in doing this, they do quite a lot of work, including holding government accountable, but also more importantly, complementing government where there are gaps in service delivery, where there are gaps in helping citizens to be able to understand their rights. So broadly, really, the key words here is that they are independent of government, that they occupy a space that is in between that of government and the private sector, or what we can call the market.
A lot of NGOs use the .org domain, and I think that there's sometimes some confusion. Having a .ngo may help define exactly what an NGO is online.
I think there's a need really to distinguish between people that work in development, human rights, disaster relief, that kind of work from the .org universe.
NGOs are by their nature very diffused. Finding them, finding ones that are good, finding ones that you can believe in and you can trust and give money to and things like that, very, very difficult. And the idea of having an online destination which could be a community gathering point for NGOs, very strong idea in my opinion.
We need a platform that we can own. We are certain it will be open forever. And I see that happening with .ngo, so I think it's the way to go.
It's a good opportunity to certify those communities and show them to the world and to be trusted.
Every day new organizations are starting up, so I think it's important to make our mission credible, to make our organization credible, to make our impact credible.
I would trust it 100% rather than doing it through a net.ngo rather than through a .com, for instance.
Believability. Trust is the single most important currency in this field. The kind of people who would run a .ngo need to be the key. It needs to be like PIR. It needs to be somebody with a long track record in the field who has the faith and the trust of the NGO community themselves. The idea that someone would start from scratch on a project this big makes no sense.
Okay, we talk about NGOs, locally or internationally, but is there really a need of NGO in the society?
Absolutely. I think we need NGOs, and NGOs is an acronym for non-governmental organization. We could have different sort of them, types of them. Some NGOs are for profit, meaning that they're there to make money and to generate funds for their businesses. On the other hand, we definitely have other NGOs. Most of the NGOs are non-profit, means that the work for the social well-being. They would like to enact change societally in society. Okay, so I think we have different types of NGOs, profit as well as non-profit.
Those are types of NGOs, and also what they do in the society for the society or population welfare, yes. Right? Maybe you did not try to go through all the aspects of NGOs, but I think the idea is to explain us clearly. Yes. As we know, the function of the government
yes.
Put in place just for the population's need. Yes. And can you tell us how an NGO function or a foundation?
A foundation. Oh, well, I think even with a foundation, we also have, I'm trying to break it down, okay, to highlight more our function. In the case of foundation, for instance, we have different types of foundation. We can have a foundation whose funding comes from the owner. Let's assume the owner used to be a celebrity and then retired, and he decided to create a foundation, and with the goal to help the local population, for instance. We have the case of the former NBA player Mutombo Dikembe, who lives in Atlanta, where I've been actually. So he created a foundation. The role is to be able to implement some project, and he finance, okay, through his own funding, that foundation. However, we also have other foundation like mine, whose goal is whose focus is more on in education. But unfortunately, unlike him, I don't dispose enough fund to fund my own activities, so I will have to rely on partners in order to fund my activities.
All right, you name Mutombo Dikembe's foundation, your own foundation as well, but typically you from diaspora, you're from there, and then you can easily then say a foundation that can help not only foreigners but also Native or Congolese people. So let me ask, because I want to make sure, because we hear about a lot of NGOs in Congo, so we want to know how are those NGOs financed just for a better function.
Unfortunately, I will be honest is to tell you that I don't know how most NGOs operate here domestically, because I have the experience I have. It's more of the international experience, and I will weigh on the international experience. Locally, we have, as you mentioned it earlier, we have a lot of nonprofit organizations which operate in a variety of sectors. Even though the most important, the goal is to improve, okay, social well-being of the population. But I think from my perspective, the goal of my nonprofit, for instance, is we focus more in education, and we're trying to help the diaspora in the U.S., in the 50 states, integrate, okay? Because unfortunately, some of those diaspora members, they are marginalized because of the language barrier they experience, and they live in the U.S., but they seem not to understand the system and the country pretty well. So our goal is we organize ESL classes. We teach them. It's a way to help them communicate, gain skills linguistically and communicationally in order to be able to integrate in the American society.
Okay, those initiatives are really commendable. It's not only when you do it outside of Congo, but if you think just for someday just to implement or to have that project implement here in Congo, it would be better. But ladies and gentlemen, please watch this video about interview that helps with the financing some NGOs around the world. But please watch it, and we'll be back.
The United States and no other country can actually expect to be able to do everything itself. It behooves us to partner with other countries that also want to do good humanitarian assistance, and so we work very largely through the large multilateral organizations. However, we also fund non-governmental organizations, and those are NGOs. They may be U.S.-based, or they may be based in another country, or they may be based in the country where the crisis is happening. It depends on the situation. We can fund any of them. We fund many of them. Usually they're ones that are also partnering with the international organizations to carry out programs such as in health or education for the refugees or forcibly displaced persons, IDPs, internally displaced persons. And they're usually partnering with the other organizations as well. Most of them are also funded by other donor countries as well. So it's a large, complex process to see who's going to be working on the ground. But because there is so much difficulty, and because many of them also work in development programs, usually if a crisis hits, there's a known set of organizations that are there ready to respond.
All right. Nowadays, we know that when things go wrong in Congo, the majority of people turn to the government for solution.
Yes.
Many sectors, they want to find a solution to the problems. The government, okay, what does the government do, actually? So you think that this is the best way of viewing things, that the government must achieve everything, any single problems in the society?
Actually, I think it depends on the type of economic model we have. We more in Africa, we tend to be more of into socialism as opposed to the United States and some of the Western countries. They are more capitalism. Okay, so with that being said, most people view the government as provider, which is true.
Is that the case in U.S.?
Absolutely. I think even in the U.S., anywhere in the world, not only in the U.S., in the Congo, anywhere in the world, the first thing, I mean, that's the reason why that's why they are supposed to be decision makers. They are there in order to work and to make sure social condition of the population improves. That's absolutely true. However, we have to know that NGOs have a role to play, have also a role to play. For instance, in the U.S., we have NGOs that operate in a community where you have, especially African American community, where you have underprivileged people. Okay, yeah, those NGOs, their role is to make sure they provide welfare to the local population, and even though the government gives most part, it comes to the people's rescue, it sustains them financially, and they have a variety of programs like welfare program. Welfare meaning that if you lose your job, the government can provide you monthly payments. Okay,
that the right function. Those things happen overseas.
Yes.
But now, when we come back here in Congo, let me tell some of the realities. Maybe you don't know those realities. Here, there are some people called religions, or people, or preachers on the bus. Sometimes they preach gospels, and at the end of the gospel, they want you to tell the passengers that they need to donate, to give something for kids and for children from orphanage. You think that, is it possible, or is it really proper to mix religion and donations or begging money? Because here they come in the name of NGO. You think that is a proper way of doing things?
Well, I think there's nothing wrong with the religious organization trying to help the local population. I can't blame them for doing that, even though I think the government has to have an eye on it, make sure the funding they collect from people and from the partners are really used for the proper goals, for proper goal, helping local population. I don't think I have any issue. I don't want to get spiritual, but even in the Bible, we have Jesus who was helping people through the word, and also it was from time to time acting in a way that it could financially sustain people. So I think it's not a bad thing for a religious organization to help local population. However, it just had to be regulated.
Okay, nothing wrong with that. You just said it. And what about mismanagement? Because there is some kind of subsidy from international organization, namely with the World Bank, but those funds are not well managed. So what kind of advice are you going to give just to be serious, to get more credibility whenever an NGO, a local NGO, is financed by international organization?
Well, unfortunately, I wish I knew how many NGOs are officially recognized and how many of them get finances or funding from the World Bank, for instance. I wish I knew that. But what I would like to say that the World Bank, I think from my perspective, only finances those NGOs which are officially known. And most of the time what they do is whenever they provide your funding, you have to submit some sort of a business plan. You have to tell them how you're going to implement your project. If you have a project of helping orphanages, you have to show them how the fund will be spent. And I think they are not stupid. These are highly educated people, and I think they always follow up whenever they release their funding.
Okay. Congo has been facing a multidimensional problems. Some of them is like food shortage, electricity supply, water, and so on. But please watch this video that talks about the role of NGO when it comes to helping the society to cope with some problems.
The role of non-governmental organizations in supporting transboundary water issues and how we might, as a global community, respond. I mean, I think that's essential. I mean, look, at every level, stakeholder engagement, for example. NGOs play a critical role in helping to educate and build the capacity of stakeholders to engage in government decision-making around transboundary water issues. And that's very important for not only representing the interests of people, but also of the environment in many of these processes throughout the world. It's also the case in many places throughout the world where having the United States get involved or having the UN get involved is not something that the governments want to see. And NGOs can be a neutral platform for conversations between stakeholders, between governments, that sometimes governments themselves can't do. And so I think the role of NGOs in building capacity, in helping to bring voices into the process that we might not otherwise see, and building a neutral platform is very helpful.
All right. We know that it's true that NGO can also promote development in the states.
Absolutely.
Yes. What about the case of DRC?
Well, I think that's one of the challenges, and we have. I mean, I wish we could audit those the local NGOs and each one by one and know exactly how they go about trying to implement the development plan that they have. For my own nonprofit organization, the goal is to focus in education. So we kind of trying to branch out because we are based internationally. I'm based in Cincinnati, Ohio, but locally, what we'd like to go to do is to implement our project. But our focus is the education system.
Are NGOs also part of entrepreneurship?
Absolutely. NGOs, they are some NGOs are startups. Okay, they are startups. What we call startups. They are NGOs owners. They are entrepreneurs.
Since this answer is correct, we know that NGO can also benefit. It can also be they can invest, right, just to help society move ahead. Please watch this video to see potential Congo has just for investments.
Along the most powerful river in Africa lies the second largest rainforest in the world. You will travel from north to south, from east to west, where livestock and arable land create a perfect balance. A Garden of Eden will offer you a rare and diverse wildlife. World capital of cobalt, this land blessed with minerals, precious stones, hydrocarbons has so much to offer to the world. Strategically located at the crossroad of 9 countries, the DRC is a key player in the region. With increasing access to technology, financial and mobile services, Congo is open to global markets like never before. The population, young, dynamic and creative, will charm you with its talent and originality. Today, at the dawn of the first peaceful political transition in our history, we invite you to discover and invest in this country, the size of a continent. because we have so much to offer. Together, let's build the DRC.
Okay. Now, we want to talk about volunteering spirits. That's most noticed in abroad, overseas than in Congo. So is it possible through NGOs that Congolese people implement volunteering spirit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to. One of the challenges we have in the Congo is that we tend to talk negatively about our homeland, which is unfortunate. I've lived in the U.S. for some number of years. I haven't heard any American talking negatively about their country. They could criticize the government or the decision makers, but they were not making things personal when it comes to their homeland. I think it's time. It's about time that we change our narrative about our homeland. Absolutely, we can enact a change.
And what are some responsibilities of NGOs as far as development is concerned?
And also talking about the volunteering spirit, I am one of the witnesses because I did that back in the States, and we can do the same here. And to come back on your question, would you like to come again with your question?
I say as far as there are some responsibilities just for NGO owners or NGOs. So what are those responsibilities as far as NGOs are concerned?
Well, I think the first thing is it depends on the sector they focus on. For instance, mine is education, and other people will certainly be social life. So I think their responsibility is to make sure whenever they get finances. I think one of the challenges is it's about finances, mismanagement of finances and investment of finances. That's one of the big challenges. Their responsibility is whenever they get funding, the funding is not theirs, it's for the population which they claim to vouch for. I think whenever they get the finances, they have to implement their project in financing micro projects and so on.
Now, the last question, what does the future hold for NGOs in DRC? You can even say some advantages or what the future holds for NGOs in the world or in DRC.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, NGOs are not only here in Africa. We have a lot of NGOs in the United States as well, even though the United States is one of the economically most powerful countries. They still have NGOs. I think NGOs can also play a role of beyond the development, can play a role of awareness, okay? They can also raise awareness among the population about patriotism, for instance, okay? Educating people about mannerism and know that, because when you live in some neighborhood in Kinshasa, it's unacceptable the way people behave, and we have to break to change the status quo, I think, because people sometimes they live in a negative mindset, not realizing that the behavior can affect other people. I think beyond the social economic issues, we have to tackle the mind awareness. They have to raise awareness about behavioral issues.
It's been my pleasure to welcome you, Joshua, in this program.
Sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of this program. It's very interesting to have a guest like my friend Joshua on the platform who broke down a lot of aspects of NGOs function around the world, including the local ones. So we are delighted. It's not the first time just only to invite him, but he will be also welcome in upcoming days. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned on our second national channel. Here are some highlights of this program.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to Brainstorm exclusive interview.
Our education should be corrected, adapted, and updated.
Live better, they can send their children to school because they can interact with their authorities.
Electricity, computer science, innovation, yeah.
And we know that this brainstorm.
You yourself, after watching this interesting program, notice the final statement made by our notable guest, a brand new one.